Hinch. This is the Naperville Area AAUW, and it's Vision 1948 presenting the program. So with that, Laurie Barsotti, Ann Lee, Tina Hinch, and Betsy Covell. They've all been working their whole careers in the STEM profession, so they know a lot about it, and they're here to share knowledge with us. So go ahead.
All right, thank you, Anne. Hi, as Anne introduced us, my name is Tina Hinch, and we're very happy to see such a big group of people joining us, spending an hour with us this evening on artificial intelligence. This is kind of a lightweight introduction, but we feel that it's important for everyone. Not just people with technology background, but anyone to have knowledge about what artificial intelligence is, and we'll have a lot of conversations as well in this evening's program. So this is a brief overview of what we're going to be doing today. I'll say a few words about Vision 1948. Then we're going to look at the power of artificial intelligence. Then the core of this today's program is then we're going to learn about how does it work? How do these machines learn to become intelligent? And how AI can intentionally or inadvertently have biases included into the machines, and what are the ethics about AI? Then we'll have a primer on ChatGPT. You probably have heard about it, and then we'll close. So this will be an hour-long program. We hope you will enjoy what we have prepared. So about Vision 1948, we're very excited because we're about to launch our website in a few days, hopefully. So you can actually get a little preview by way of a few website pages. I will introduce our group. So we are the Vision 1948 group. As Anne mentioned, we are part of the AAUW Naperville initiative. We formed about a year ago. Our focus is to bring gender equity back to the technology industry, because representation of women in this industry has just been very poor, around the 20% range. And our mission, as stated already, that we're trying to bring gender equity back to technology by empowering and encouraging girls and young women to pursue this field, computer science, technology, through education, through awareness, through workplace policy improvements, and advocating for positive media portrayal. We think that is the 20% has been a concern for the recent past. We feel that it's even more urgent now than ever with artificial intelligence, because we have machines making life-impacting decisions, and to prevent biases in the machines, the workforce working in this area has got to be equitably represented. And Anne mentioned a little bit about us explaining why our name is 1940. I wasn't going to go into that, but Anne, since you mentioned, all of us who started this group, we have roots in the Bell Laboratories organization, which, as some of you know, is a very preeminent research organization. I think I lost the exact number. I think it has won 10 Nobel Prizes over the course of time. And we found that in 1948, the year 1948, the math department actually has close to 50% of women in the organization. So, that's what inspired us to use a name, and that's what we, set our sight on. So the things we do, as I actually already mentioned, education, public awareness, media, and workplace policy. So what we're offering today, the artificial intelligence introduction and conversation, is under this education umbrella. Under that umbrella, we also do stuff like panel discussion. We bring professional women to the panel to talk to the audience, whether it be young girls or parents, guardians, talk about the cool things you can do in the field of technology. And we actually have one coming up in partnership with Neuqua Valley High School on April 20th. So more details will come. So that is just a kind of a nutshell about our group, the Vision 1948 group. So at this point, as I mentioned earlier on the agenda, we're gonna go into the discussion about the power of artificial intelligence. And again, as you all know, artificial intelligence is transforming our society. They're improving our lives in powerful ways. So at this point, I want to call up Betsy Covell. She will lead us in this part of the agenda, the power of AI.
Okay, thanks, Tina. So I just want to pose a question to you, and maybe you can do a quick comment in the chat. If you have heard about AI, if you've used AI, if maybe you have some AI devices at home, or you've dabbled in it online, just kind of put a note in the chat if you have, just to give us a little head count of how many have some experience. I'm not seeing anything in the chat. Okay. So maybe not a lot of experience there yet. Maybe you saw the billboards that were up on Route 55 last year that said AI is going to take your job unless you're retired. So okay, I see Alexa and Siri, some things like that. But some of what you might have heard in the news might sound a little scary, if it's going to take your jobs and it's going to take over the world and all of this interesting stuff if you read sci-fi novels. But it actually it's a tool like any other tool. It has a lot of potential to do a lot of good, as well as, I won't sugarcoat it, potential to do some harm if it's used inappropriately. So we wanted to start off to give a positive view of AI, and we're going to share a little video clip with you. It's called Seeing AI, and you'll understand why when we start it, and then we'll come back and have a little discussion about it. So enjoy the video.
My take on life is that life is definitely there for the taking. What you put in is what you'll get out. Two things important to me in life are family and music. They both play a huge part in my life. Technology allows me to be my own one-man band. I try to be as independent as I can, and the way that I do that mostly is with low-tech, which is a white cane, and high-tech, which is a phone.
Seeing AI.
Seeing AI is one of the biggest deals in technology, I think, at the moment for visually impaired users. It's an app that you can read almost anything, anywhere with it.
Kilburn High Road. Fashion, workspace, mayonnaise.
It has a multitude of functions, and they all work together to produce something that you can use whenever you need it. It might even be considered to be a Swiss Army knife of apps. Of all the parts of Seeing AI, I really do think short text is the biggest of the game changers.
Northwest 6.
Because I've never seen anything like that in any other app before. And I like being in the back of cabs or in buses and pointing it out the window and seeing what I pass on the way to places.
Mobile phone NC 4000 services.
One of the greatest things about short text for me is that if there's no one else in the house, I can sort the post into who's who.
Mrs. K. Louis. Mrs. Kirsten Louis.
So I don't open my wife's post and she doesn't get cross with me. Package.
Oh, well, Andre.
My man Alex.
Good.
One fella.
Blessed.
£20.
That's really cool.
Currency is a very useful channel because sometimes it's very difficult to know what notes actually are. So with currency, I can detect that straight away.
£5.
Job done. 2025. Well done.
Scene preview.
Scene is actually really cool. It's quite descriptive, really.
Processing. A store filled with lots of different types of fruit.
I think that's pretty amazing.
Twitterific.
In my view, one of the best parts of Seeing AI is the ability to read pictures from social media. because so many times someone will send me a picture of something that I cannot understand. So I will share that picture to Seeing AI.
Scene. Probably a group of people sitting on a bench in a park.
And then I'll get a description of what it is.
Person. 8-year-old boy with black hair looking happy. 7-year-old girl with brown hair looking disgusted.
And it's changed how I can view social media. It feels like I can participate
Like, reply.
far more than I could before.
Thank you for sharing. Handwriting preview.
With Handwriting Channel, I was actually able to read a card from a family member last year. That's the first time I'd actually been able to do that without help.
Dear Dad.
Alice worked. We can tell if Jake's been writing well, if the handwriting tab can recognize it. That's good proof, really.
We love you, Daddy. XXXXXX.
We've got lots of X's. The effect of having Seeing AI to hand all the time is like having somebody who can see in your pocket.
34-year-old man with a beard wearing a hat looking happy.
Why not?
There is so much more that I can do now that I couldn't before. You've grown up.
I used to be 9.
I think Seeing AI really is a huge technological step down the road, and I hope that we can continue down a road like this for many years to come.
Okay, so that was an example of how AI is a power for good, improving our lives. And it's just one example of helping those who are, less able in some ways than some of the rest of us to make adaptations in their life, translating things to pictures, to text. It could be passing on tactile information. It could be providing information about objects around you, similar to what we saw when he was in the cab. I see there's a comment that somebody has used a phone to translate museum labels from another language into English. So there's a lot of good ways that AI can be very useful, can help us. And as we'll talk about a little bit more, if people have some comments or questions, please do put them in the chat. We'll see a little bit more through the rest of the program about how we train AIs to do this, and how we train them makes a difference in how well they can do these tasks. So we'll dig a little bit more into the details of that. But if anyone has questions or comments, a reaction to the video, or another thought about AI in their life, go ahead and put it in the chat.
I think, Betsy, also, if people want to unmute themselves, and, we have a couple minutes that we like to hear, the audience, what kind of AI devices or experience they have had that have helped them, improve their lives, etc.
So any comments or questions, either via chat or go ahead and unmute yourself and speak up. Looks like Lynn,
yep.
Go ahead.
I was at the grocery store checking out, and I put something in the bag, and then I also threw my grocery list in there, and they said potential misscanned item. So they had to go back and look and see that it was just the grocery list that I had in my hand that I threw in the bag.
Not something else. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, but it was AI type of,
It detects it by the weight.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was one of my experiences
Okay,
earlier today.
Christy, it looks like you have your hand up.
Yeah, this is Christy Magnoli. I write children's books, and the first time I heard about AI was a few years back when I attended a Society of Children's Books Writers and Illustrator meeting. And they were talking about a book coming out. I don't know if it's Ludacris or one of those musicians who is writing. Oh, I think that's the musician. He wrote a children's book where artificial intelligence was used, where when the children are reading the books, they can actually be part of them. It was so complicated, I didn't understand it. But that was the first time I really heard about AI. So I'm really interested how that can be put into my children's books. Like I wrote children's books about African the games we used to play in the village. Like that would be amazing for the
And then have
children
them
to feel
actually
like
play
they're
it.
engaged. Yes,
Yeah.
I've always, my nephew who is like IT specialist in Seattle, he said I can do like a virtual, like these things that they wear on their faces and they can feel like they're engaged in the games in a village in Africa.
Oh, that
So
would
I'm
be
really
cool.
interested about, so I'm really interested in finding out. That's why I'm not sleeping now to go to work by 10:30. I'm listening to it. So thank you guys so much for putting this together.
Yeah, that's great. Those are great examples. One last comment from anyone, or we'll move on to the next portion of the program. I don't see any other hands up. All right, then I'm going to turn it back to Tina, and we're going to get now a chance to learn a little bit more about AI and actually have a chance to do some training of an AI.
All right, thank you, Betsy. But I just maybe just want to say one thing, because I see on the chat, a few people say, no, I haven't experienced AI. I think probably more people, on this call have experienced AI, but probably without realizing that it's AI. One example is, have you ever wondered, while you're surfing the internet and so on, or on social media, you get ads, of things that, that seem to be very specifically targeted towards you, right? And that is because, Google and other platforms, right? They keep track of, what websites you visit and so on. And then, make decisions for you as to these are the types of retails that you're interested in. And then they target, the ads, those ads towards you. And that is, a form of AI. And I believe many people have probably experienced that. So, all right. So thank you again, Betsy. So as Betsy mentioned, as I mentioned earlier on the agenda, that we're now going to learn a little bit about how AI works, right? Some of you say you've used Siri, Alexa, some kind of home assistant. Well, how is it that, seems like these machines have some form of intelligence, So let's, we have an interactive module of about 20 minutes now that will have some game as well as some video that will take you through to learn about AI. So first of all, let's watch again a short video to introduce, how these machines learn.
My name is Ale Flores, and I'm a product manager at Alexa.
My name is Dr. Chelsea Haupt. I work at the Allen Institute for Artificial Intelligence, and I work on an AI-powered academic search engine. All around you, computers are making decisions, and those decisions affect your daily life. When you do an internet search or scroll through your newsfeed, computers decide what you see. Computers can already recognize your face and understand your voice, and soon they'll be driving cars and detecting diseases even better than humans. So how is any of this possible?
You may have heard about something called AI, or artificial intelligence. True artificial intelligence is decades away, but there's a type of AI called machine learning that is here today. It's a type of AI you probably interact with every day without even knowing it. And it has the opportunity to help us tackle some of the world's biggest challenges.
Machine learning is how computers recognize patterns and make decisions without being explicitly programmed. What's so exciting is that it's a completely different way to program a computer than what we've ever done before. With machine learning, instead of programming a computer step by step, you can program a computer to learn just like you learn, through trial and error and lots of practice.
Learning comes from experience, and that's true for machine learning too. In this case, experience means lots and lots of data. Machine learning can take in any kind of data, images, video, audio, or text, and begin to recognize patterns in that data. Once it learns to recognize patterns in the data, it can also learn to make predictions based on those patterns, like noticing the difference between an image of a car and an image of a bicycle.
AI and machine learning are playing a bigger and bigger role in society at large and shaping all of our futures. That's why it's so important to learn how it works with some hands-on experience. You're about to get the chance to train your own machine learning model. Remember, AI is like any tool. First you get the knowledge, then you get the power.
All right. So that was a very nice video. I thought the two women, Ali and Chachi, gave an excellent overview about AI and machine learning. I just want to make maybe a slight comment. There was a comment made by Ali that, true AI is going to be decades away. This video is maybe a few years old, and in the recent couple of years, AI has really taken an exponential breakthrough, if I may say that. So I would not say AI is actually decades away, it's upon us now. So I just want to make that comment. But now what we're going to do is a very fun, no technical background required kind of a game that will teach everyone a little bit about how do machines learn. So a few instructions that I want to go through before we play that game. So you're going to have to open your chat window to look for, in a minute, we'll send you the link on where to go to play the game. About 8 minutes have been allocated for this game, and we'll provide time checks along the way. When you start the game, you will see a bar that looks like this bar on your screen showing your game progress. We will start with level 2, and then you can, once you're done, you can proceed to level 3 and then 4. But then when you're done with 4, please stop, because then we want to all come back to the big group and together view a video and have some discussions. Feel free to ask questions during the game using chat, if you run into any technical issues or whatnot. And when you're done with level 4, put on the chat that you're done so that we get a feeling of how many people are done, so that we can regroup into the bigger group. So so Betsy, if you could please put the chat. I see Betsy has just done that already. So for the audience, if you can now click on that URL to then start the game and have fun. 8 minutes, and we'll provide some reminders along the way. Another video to talk about the importance of of data.
Machine learning is only as good as the training data you put into it. So it's super important to use high quality data, and lots of it. But if data is so important, it's worth asking, where does training data come from? Often, computers are collecting training data from people like you and me without any effort on our part. A video streaming service might keep track of what you watch, then it can recognize patterns in that data to recommend what you might want to watch next. Other times, you're directly asked to help, like when a website asks you to spot street signs and photos. You're providing training data to help a machine learn to see and maybe even one day drive. Medical researchers can use medical images as training data to teach computers how to recognize and diagnose diseases. Machine learning needs hundreds and thousands of images and training direction from a doctor who knows what to look for before it can correctly identify disease. Even with thousands of examples, there can be problems with the computer's predictions. If X-ray data is only collected from men, then the computer's predictions may only work for men. It may not recognize diseases when asked to diagnose the X-ray of a woman. This blind spot in the training data creates something called bias. Bias data favors some things and deprioritizes or excludes others. Depending on how training data is collected, who is doing the collecting, and how the data is fed into the computer, there is a chance that human bias is included in the data. By learning from biased data, the computer may make biased predictions. This can happen whether the people training the computer are aware of it or not. So when you are looking at training data, ask yourself 2 questions. Is this enough data to accurately train a computer? And does this data represent all possible scenarios and users without bias? This is where you as the human trainer can play a crucial role. It's up to you to give your machine unbiased data. That means collecting tons of examples, often from lots of different sources. Remember, when you pick and choose data for machine learning, you're actually programming the algorithm using training data instead of code. The data is the code. The better the data you provide, the better the computer will learn.
So hopefully this short video has further reinforced the concept that, because the machines are trained by data, the kind of data we feed into the machine is very important. I think the one statement that was made in the video that I think should really cause everyone to pay attention is that, when we use machines to diagnose disease, but if the images are only pertaining, to men, then this machine would not be very effective in diagnosing diseases for women. So bias, is something that we really want to work against, in the world of artificial intelligence and machine learning. So I want to bring us back to a little bit of a takeaway discussion here. So AI, of course, is a complex topic and a lot of different levels of usage and so on. But hopefully, the very kind of brief game and introduction has helped you understand the fundamentals of how it works. And that machines are only smart because humans train them with a high amount of data and images. And that AI is starting to make a lot of very important decisions in society, life-impacting decisions. So therefore, our main message here is that people who work to train these machines to work in this field, we have to make sure that there's good representation from all different groups across genders, races, ages, backgrounds, perspectives to prevent bias. And AI, all in all, needs to be ethical and responsible. The good news is that, with the advent of AI, many industry leaders, educators, research organizations, policymakers are indeed paying attention to ethics, to biases, and responsible AI. So we have another video that we like to share that illustrates that point.
When people wonder what is AI, they think about robots.
Robots.
Let's make a distinction. The robot itself is hardware. AI is software.
What is artificial intelligence? Systems that mimic, perhaps even go beyond our own ability to think and to process information.
It determines who we want to date, whether we get a certain kind of loan, operating at all levels of our economy, in the political realm, in the judicial system, employment practices, in the educational system. All of these decisions help to determine how well or how poorly our lives go, and increasingly, AI is involved in those decisions. We are right to be concerned when we are just now learning to think about the social and ethical implications of using AI.
So many of our own stories are about the relationship between the creation and the creator.
So we're at this inflection point right now. Suddenly, all of this data, these algorithms, and the computational power is available.
And that's really been the breakthrough.
Things are becoming real that we've talked about, we've dreamt about for decades. AI which can do a very specific, narrow task.
That can recognize voice, navigate a car, translate language. And if this is going to be the ubiquitous tool,
We're doing ourselves a disservice by not educating the general population also on what is really going on right now.
We have so many immediate concerns about the kind of AI that will be developed that we really need to devote most of our educational efforts to those kinds of problems. Artificial intelligence uses a massive amount of data to recognize certain kinds of patterns that are correlated with a successful result.
Hidden in these vast pools of data that we're now using are remarkable opportunities to run off the rails.
So we have to be careful about the data we give it.
Data.
Data can be bad because it's not been properly labeled, because it's inaccurate, because it has baked into it certain human biases that are naturally a part of society.
One clear example of data bias is the use of algorithms to make decisions about the fate of prisoners.
If you have enough data points, you should be able to judge a person's likelihood of reoffending. Well, the problem is,
if there is bias hidden in the data, your outcome in the judicial system may be very different than someone who's upper middle class and white.
Why is it projecting higher risk scores onto Black defendants? It often turns out that the algorithm itself isn't feeding on any data that's explicitly labeled in terms of race. A zip code doesn't tell you anything about a person's race. What the machine learns is, people in this zip code are more likely to be criminal, when in fact it may just be that they're more likely to be Black or poor or any other category that is a subject of biased practices.
These technologies will actually reinforce some of the worst aspects of our society, which is really a great tragedy because the technology has the potential to actually do exactly the opposite.
Machines aren't racist, machines aren't sexist, machines aren't ableist or classist. We are.
Our biases will get not only embedded in this one program, but get scaled out rapidly.
Silicon Valley has been a magnet for all the world's best, but it also tends to be dominated by white males.
AI has a white guy problem.
It's going to be crucial for us to have different kinds of diversity to be part of the development of AI.
Who builds these AI systems and what data are we using in them is vital.
What I see is a generation that takes all kinds of life instructions from its device, whether it is where to go to eat Korean barbecue or who to marry. It all comes magically out of the palm of your hand from an algorithm that you know nothing about.
Who's behind that screen? Who's on the other end of the wire?
What are the motivations of the algorithm? People no longer even think to ask. It's just so convenient.
That ability to predict and then modify our behavior, perhaps even without us fully understanding why or how.
If you want the machine to behave in an ethical manner, you have to know why it does what it does.
Part of the transparency is to be able to explain the logical steps that it went through to arrive at a certain recommendation.
When we are training these machine learning algorithms, we're supplying it 1 million pictures of cats. And we just say, that's a picture of a cat. We don't say that's a picture of a cat because of the ears and the tail, the whisker and the nose and all that.
the machine itself starts to recognize that such and such is a cat and such is not a cat.
We don't actually know how the circuit has reached that particular set of conclusions.
Hot dog, not hot dog, whatever. That's funny. Fire missile, not fire missile. That's not funny.
The particular nature of the technology that's being rolled out, they're so complex and they operate on such large data sets that the function of the algorithm is largely eluding the designers.
And maybe that's part of the regulation that will be built around AI. You cannot explain what this program has done. It just should not be released to humankind.
And there is this movement starting where more and more people say, well, we need to be able to audit this. We need to be able to understand what's going on.
We're about to bump into things that we really have not thought about as a human species. The notion that you can interact with a bot on the internet and it can affect your propensity to vote one way or another is a tremendous threat to democracy.
Autonomous weapons is a terrifying concept.
Drones with smart algorithms being turned into weapons.
There is a legitimate fear that the power of artificial intelligence will be disproportionately put in the hands of the already powerful.
Should we give it to the rich because they can afford it? There is a popular view that over a couple decade period we'll have no jobs at all.
It's not a binary like, do I have a job in the future or not? It's how is my job going to change?
This isn't a bubble. AI is going to become a bigger and bigger and bigger part of everything.
And this might be the way that we get to the stars, get to the bottom of the ocean.
Cure cancer, fix climate change.
The world is getting better, and these technologies are enabling that.
At its best, it's going to solve all of our problems, and at its worst, it's going to be the thing that ends humanity.
We must develop responsible and safe practices before the power gets too unmanageable for us to control. Whose responsibility is it? Is it corporations, government? Is it society? And it's really all of us.
There would probably be scientists and technologists who say, I'm not going to let any consideration stop me from my investigation of the world we live in. We all have to together say, is that a road we want to go down?
Human responsibility for human power.
You shouldn't be okay with us making all the rules.
The New Manhattan Project is not AI development. The New Manhattan Project is AI safety.
The more that they take on characteristics of our own cognitive processes, the more that raises our responsibility as their creators, as their trainers, to constantly be vigilant and asking ourselves, how should I be doing this work?
Technology by itself is not good or bad. If AI is done right, it's all going to make us better humans.
All right. So as we talked about actually a couple of times, I think hopefully our message is clear. So AI is, like many new technology, is a double-edged sword. It's very powerful. It brings about a lot of good improvement, bettering our lives. But if not done properly, it can also cause harm. I guess the other message that we like to send is, because of all of that, and because you've seen how machines learn because of the way humans train them, it is very important to have an equitable workforce that works in the area of AI. And our last message is that AI, ethical AI, responsible AI is actually, the responsibility, the role that many of us can play a role in, right? We can be encouraging, women to go into this field, or people of different, diversity background. We can be asking questions, demanding answers, demanding transparencies, in the conversations about AI. Now, one thing I do want to mention is that, I don't know if Elizabeth is on the call. So we gave a session in September at the Illinois AAUW workshop. And Elizabeth told me after attending that workshop, it's like she has a new pair of lens to process, to talk about AI. Elizabeth, can I put you on the spot and ask you to share what you told me?
Sure, I have camera off. I hope that's okay.
No
Can you hear
problem.
me?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I can't remember my exact comments to you, Tina, but in general, after I heard that presentation that you made, I think at the state convention in September, Yeah, I've looked at every single thing I see and through new eyes. Like, for example, I think I gave you the example of my brother who is working in medical imaging and making things to help radiologists read x-rays and mammograms and things like that faster. And I thought, oh my goodness, you know, what if there's not gender equity in that? You know, what if, you know, my mind, and now you can hear my dog, my mind went 1,000 different ways. So yes, I started to think about everything very differently after that, Tina. So
Thank you. I thought, you know, what a powerful statement, right? That it illustrates indeed, you know, AI is going to be all around us. We know people who work on it and so on. So, you know, to play the role of, you know, asking, you know, do we have the right representation, making sure that there is, you know, equity is so important, since AI is going to be, you know, really controlling our lives. So at this point, I want to take us to the next part of our agenda. So Laurie, if you could bring back the slides. Yeah, so some of you may have heard this term, the word ChatGPT, right? Is taking the world by storm. So we have prepared a brief primer about what it is. And at this point, I want to call on Ann Lee, who's also part of the Vision 1948 group, to lead on that discussion.
Okay, thanks, Tina. I just want to ask from a time check, do we just have 4 minutes left, or do people have more time?
I think, Ann, at the beginning, we said we could take this out to a little bit past 8 o'clock, but not too much. So I think you should plan to do your thing in about 10 minutes.
Okay. Okay, we can do that. All right, so thank you, Tina. Why don't we go to the next slide? As Tina said, this has taken the world by storm since November 30th of last year. First, I wanted to do a very quick definitions of some terms. Generative AI is a class of AI that encompasses all the AI that actually creates unique content, whether that content is text, video, images, sound, or even software code. And within the umbrella of generative AI, there are AIs called large language models, and those specifically focus on generating unique text. ChatGPT is one instance of large language models. Next slide. I'm going to talk about ChatGPT. So ChatGPT has smashed records for adoption. It has reached 1 million users in 5 days and 100 million users in 2 months. And that breaks the record of TikTok and Instagram, which was the previous record holders. Next slide. I want to first show you some examples of what ChatGPT can do. And this is just a small sampling of the incredible capabilities of ChatGPT. So first thing I asked it was, write a limerick about a bagel chip. And it wrote, there once was a bagel chip so bold, its flavor was worth more than gold. With cream cheese, it was divine, a perfect snack at any time. This chip was a story to be told. And then I asked it, well, write a short riddle about donuts. And it wrote, I'm round and sweet with a hole in my center. I'm fried or baked and always a winner. Sprinkled, glazed, or filled with cream. I'm every pastry lover's dream. What am I? And the answer is a donut. I think when you also do a Google search on this type of questioning that I had asked ChatGPT, you may find that there are some things that are similar to what ChatGPT generates, but many times it's not exact. So it's actually creating some unique content based on all of the information that it trained on the internet. I also asked it can write jokes too, and it can do if you want to ask it to create a comedy routine, you can, but it'll be quite long. So I just asked it to write a joke. And so I asked it to write a joke about a guitar and a can of Coke. And it wrote, why did the guitarist bring a can of Coke to his concert? Because he wanted to do a soda pop solo. So some of the jokes are really good, but some of it is maybe a little like a groan. Then the next couple of slides, I thought I'd ask it some math problems, some simple math problems, but something that maybe your child, when the children were young, might have gotten. So I asked it, if Jane bought 10 apples, gave 2 to Pete and ate 1, then how many apples will she have left? And it answered, if Jane bought 10 apples, gave 2 to Pete and ate 1, then she would have 7 apples left. To calculate, start with 10 apples she bought, subtract the 2 she gave away, which leaves 8. Then subtract the 1 she ate, which leaves 7. So Jane will have 7 apples left after giving 2 to Pete and eating 1. So that's kind of amazing. And it talks to you in a conversational tone. And it also remembers what it is that, the train of conversation. So I asked another follow-up question and I said, how much will Jane have if she buys 4 more apples? And it answers, if Jane buys 4 more apples, then she will have a total of 11 apples, starting with the 7 apples she had left after giving 2 to Pete and eating 1. We can add the 4 apples that she bought, which gives us a total of 11 apples. So if Jane buys 4 more apples, she will have a total of 11 apples. It's quite amazing. And I did one more follow-up question, and it remembered the train of discussion that we were having. And I asked, does Jane now have enough apples to make an apple pie? And it answered, the number of apples needed to make an apple pie varies depending on the recipe, but on average, you would need around 6 to 8 medium-sized apples for a single pie. In this case, Jane has 11 apples, which would be enough to make an apple pie. However, it also depends on how many apples Jane wants to use for other purposes, such as snacking or making applesauce. So if Jane wants to use all of her apples for an apple pie, she has enough. But if she wants to save some time, save some for other uses, she may need to purchase more apples. So you can see that it's not like a computer just answering specifically your question, but it has a whole conversation with you and expands beyond the original question that it asks. It's quite amazing. So next slide. It can do many things. So as you can see, it's a very, very good writer. And some headline news I want to share with you. Just 2 months after, this was at the end of January, so ChatGPT launched as a prototype actually at the end of November. So 2 months later, this headline news came out. Real estate agents say they can't imagine working without ChatGPT now. So many real estate agents are now using ChatGPT to actually write listings for their property. And it's also using it to create legal documents for contracts to sign for their properties. So quite amazing. And next slide. You may have also heard, if you've heard of ChatGPT, you might have heard this headline news, and there seems to be headline news almost every day since its launch. But ChatGPT passes medical law, and business exams. So it was able to pass exams from the Wharton Business School, from the Minnesota Law School. And these tests were a mixture of short answers, essays, and multiple choice, and it was able to do it. Next slide. Now, after that, we did see some headline news recently, as recent as yesterday, where ChatGPT was tested in Singapore using a standardized 6th grade test, and it actually failed miserably. But days later, they tested it again and it had learned, and it was able to pass many of the questions that it failed before. So this is a continuously learning and retraining model, although the information that it currently has is basically trained up to the year 2021. So it still needs work to continue to train, but it's very amazing. It's just absolutely amazing what it's capable of doing if you try it out. And it's free for you to try out. So next slide. ChatGPT is also appearing in many places. This is one example. If you've ever used WordPress to create your websites, WordPress is now adding a ChatGPT plugin into it. Microsoft has also been adding ChatGPT into Bing for some select users, and you may have heard some news about some of the interesting interactions with it. which it needs to do a little fixing. Next slide. Some sampling of how people use ChatGPT. So as you've noticed, it's capable of writing very well. It's also good as an editor, so you can feed it something that you've written and it will spell check it for you, and it will fix your grammar for you and all of that. So you can use it for proofreading. You can use it to summarize some of the work that you've done. If you have data in a simple table, it can analyze the data for you and write a report about that data. People are using it to write code. It is capable of writing code in JavaScript, in Python, and probably other coding languages. And it can help you build a website and write social media posts. It's also being used to write your resume, write cover letters, and do job searches for you. And as I think you have a glimpse, it's a very good writer, so it will come out looking really good. Now, one thing you do have to do is you need a human in the loop for these, because it does hallucinate. So the term hallucinate means that it can write very, very plausible text that sounds really good and sounds correct, but you have to look at the facts carefully, because sometimes they'll make things up. So you have to be very careful about that. But it's very good at, like bootstrapping. If you're something that you're writing, if you have writer's block, you can ask it to start writing something. Like if you want to write an essay, or you want to start writing a novel or a children's book or whatever, you can ask it to write about, different things and objects and people, and it'll start to write. It'll actually start to create something for you, and it can write it as prose. It can write it as a poem. It could write it as a song. It can do it in many different forms and formats. And so next slide. Guess we can, that was a very quick introduction to ChatGPT, and there's so much more that it's capable of doing, and there are things that you have to watch out for. You, as I mentioned, these hallucinations. But despite that, people are going forward and doing all kinds of and experimenting with it in many different ways to see what they can do with ChatGPT. As I said, it's free, so you can sign up, register as a user, and just start talking to it and asking it questions. Maybe at this point, we can talk a little bit about the implications of ChatGPT and large language models. Questions, there are topics like jobs. What does this do to, what are the impacts to jobs with technology like ChatGPT? Also impacts to education or to policymakers, even cybersecurity, and just trust in general with these types of generative AI type technologies. Are there, I see there's a number of messages on chat. If there's anybody that has questions or comments, maybe if you could unmute yourself, and maybe that's easier than trying to sort through the questions that are in chat. Or if somebody else on the team could read the questions from the chat, and we could have a
Yeah, I've been trying to answer the questions on chat already, Anne.
Okay.
So is there any, I mean, I think I know the answer to this already, but there doesn't seem to be any form of regulation about any of it, because it is so new and so startlingly different. And I've seen it in the chat, but I've seen it anyway, kids cheating with it in schools and, passing law exams and, sending dis and misinformation politically and everything else. And this company just said, oh, everybody can use it. And it had 1 million users in a day. Is any government, is anybody set up to regulate any of this?
Regulations for technology like this is really behind. I mean, we're already behind regulating Facebook. But the OpenAI folks actually have said that they think that this type of technology, ChatGPT, should be regulated. But but as you see how long it takes to get laws passed through Congress, or even maybe in the EU and other governments and countries, it'll take time to catch up and actually create the proper regulations for this this technology. And in the meantime, people have to somehow adapt to this being out there in the world and figure out how to work with its existence, because the genie's been let out of the bottle, and I don't think you can put it back in. So we have to figure out how to deal with this, and maybe we need to work with our lawmakers to help speed up their making laws, because maybe they can use ChatGPT to help write some regulations too.
So there was a recent news article that I read. There was a congressperson who came onto the Congress floor, gave a speech, and then at the end of the speech, he said, "All right, everyone, folks, this speech was written by ChatGPT. I did not write it." And the point that he was trying to make was a good one, that he wanted to draw attention to Congress that it's upon us. We need to there's a race against time, to be putting down policies and so on. And he made the point. So it was rather interesting.
Yeah, one thing ChatGPT has done is, by launching it, is that it's created an arms race now between large language models. Google was not ready to release theirs yet, but they feel the pressure, and their investors, the stock investors, have pressured them into doing something about ChatGPT. So they've prematurely launched Bard, and they've acquired a company that also has a ChatGPT-like a bot called Claude. And you see also articles like that talk about China noticing this. You cannot register in China to ChatGPT. OpenAI has banned it, but people know about it, and the companies there now are scrambling to launch their own ChatGPT. So there's this rush. While governments are behind in regulations already, there's also this rush for even more ChatGPT-like AI.
So I hate to cut this conversation short, but we're coming upon our end time. So thank you, Anne. And I also want to thank the audience for being so engaged in this discussion. Hopefully you have taken something away from this workshop, learned a little bit about AI and its implications, and recent major breakthroughs in AI, such as ChatGPT. And I, of course,